When the starting gun fires, we are watching the absolute limits of human physics, broadcast to millions of people who will dissect every millisecond and every biological detail of the athletes on screen. During the Paris 2024 Olympics, the tension surrounding these physical details boiled over. The Games became a global battleground over a highly contested concept: fairness. The world happily celebrated certain athletes. Turkish shooter Yusuf Dikic went instantly viral for winning a silver medal with his hand in his pocket and practically no specialized gear. We love an underdog who makes it look easy. But for others, the public reaction was aggressively different. Algerian boxer Iman Khalis found herself at the center of a worldwide panic over biological advantages and gender definitions, despite having competed against women her entire career. If you want to understand how science and society actually intersect behind the scenes of events like this, hit the like button, subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. We are going to unpack the actual biology behind the controversy. The truth is, elite sports have never been biologically fair. The sudden weaponization of the word fairness often serves as an elegant mask, hiding deep-seated social fears and prejudices that have nothing to do with the games themselves. Let's look at what an Olympic champion actually is. Olympic champions are extreme biological outliers, operating at the absolute margins of human capability. A gold medal requires a collision of years of training and extremely rare biological luck. Phelps's body produces roughly half the lactic acid of a typical athlete, delaying muscle fatigue for minutes. In swimming, we celebrate this biological shortcut as a gift rather than an unfair chemical edge. Extreme genetics literally force sports to rewrite their rulebooks. Wilt Chamberlain's height and massive leaping ability allowed him to dominate basketball so thoroughly that the NCAA and NBA had to invent new rules, like banning offensive goaltending, to accommodate his specific physical mutations. When a swimmer like Katie Ledecky holds the top 20 fastest times in the 1500-meter freestyle, the public universally praises her pure talent. No one demands a tribunal to investigate her biological advantages. Massive lung capacities, hyperflexibility, and specific traits like the ACTN3 gene mutation, which enhances fast-twitch muscle fibers for sprinting, are fully accepted as the basic cost of entry for elite competition. If the entire foundation of elite sports relies on celebrating extreme genetic advantages, why does the public suddenly demand strict, unyielding biological boundaries the second the conversation shifts to testosterone in women or transgender athletes? When the subject turns to transgender athletes, the script flips entirely. Society abruptly stops celebrating biological diversity, and it starts demanding rigid, binary categories that biology itself rarely supports. This line chart tracks the timeline of hormone therapy. Peer-reviewed data from academic databases like ScienceDirect show that over time, medical transition causes a distinct, measurable decrease in physical advantages, drastically lowering hemoglobin levels and reducing overall muscle mass. Furthermore, reports from the San Francisco government confirm that human biology resists simple categorization. This scatterplot compares testosterone levels, showing wide, overlapping natural variations between cisgender women and post-therapy transgender women. There is no clear, definitive biological line separating the two groups. Despite this data, the International Olympic Committee's policies have wavered heavily in recent years. Instead of following the scientific consensus, their guidelines have increasingly moved towards restrictive exclusion, largely driven by intense social and political pressure. When policies diverge from these physiological measurements to target one specific minority, the objective shifts towards social policing. Academic reviews identify this as a form of hidden transphobia, where rules are used to enforce a binary that the data doesn't support. The obsession with testing and banning these specific athletes serves as an ideological tool. It dictates who gets to be visible, who gets to be accepted, and who is allowed to be celebrated in our society. Sports do not exist in a biological vacuum. They act as a direct mirror of society's broader struggles with human rights, reflecting exactly who we value and who we exclude. The Olympics have always been a battleground for defining who belongs. At the 1936 Berlin Olympics, Adolf Hitler attempted to use the Games to prove a myth of Aryan genetic supremacy. That myth was utterly shattered on the track by Black American athletes like Jesse Owens. Historically, marginalized athletes have used the Olympic podium to fight against discrimination and demand basic visibility. Tommy Smith and John Carlos raising their fists in 1968 forced the world to acknowledge systemic racism on a global broadcast. Organizations like the Sport and Rights Alliance emphasize a crucial point. Access to sports is a fundamental human right. Stripping a marginalized group of this access keeps them off the podium and effectively erases them from public life entirely. Fortunately, social panics and exclusionary biases are learned behaviors. Psychological studies show that we can unlearn them through a combination of clear scientific education and direct human empathy. We only need to look at the founder of the modern Olympics, Baron Pierre de Coubertin, to remember the actual foundational ethos of the Games. Coubertin famously stated that the essence of the Games is the struggle, not the triumphs. Fairness isn't found in a room full of identical biology, but in a stadium that makes room for every physiological outlier we've spent a century cheering for.